Chapter 2872, God's Domain Shaken. Chapter 2872, God's Domain Shaken. Zero Wing City, Battle Arena. Guild leader Black Flame has been promoted to Tier 5. 16th Cloud was stunned when she read the report she received. Looking at Sorrowful Silence, she asked, "Have you verified this?" Although quite a number of God's Domain's Void Realm experts had gotten promoted to Tier 4 already, with Domain Realm experts even making considerable progress in developing their mana bodies, everyone was still a long way from reaching Tier 5. Creating a Tier 5 mana body was an entirely different matter from improving the completion rate of one's mana body. Since most Tier 4 experts hadn't even developed their mana bodies to a significant extent, getting promoted to Tier 5 shouldn't be possible. Hence, 16th Cloud found it truly hard to believe that Shifeng had already reached Tier 5. However, instead of getting the answer she hoped for, Sorrowful Silence nodded solemnly. He then said in a shocked voice, "Yes, I happened to be in another reception room at the time, negotiating with Zero Wing's representative for a long-term lease of the Battle Arena's combat rooms. My room was quite close to the reception room used to host the secret pavilion and the 3 super guilds." Every Zero Wing member on the floor reacted strongly. I also saw Mythologies and Solar Temple's members leave the residence, looking grim. In reality, Sorrowful Silence didn't just hear about Shifeng's promotion to Tier 5 from Zero Wing's members. He had also personally experienced the frightening aura Shifeng had exuded. Despite being in an entirely different room, he had still sensed that aura clearly, and it had been much stronger than the auras of the Tier 5 NPCs he had come across before. Of course, the Tier 5 NPCs Sorrowful Silence met previously had never displayed any killing intent. They had even been actively suppressing their auras. In comparison, Shifeng had not held anything back when he attacked Sichu Qingtian and Kaiyang Tianhe. This was why Sorrowful Silence was confident Shifeng had reached Tier 5. This is interesting. 16th Cloud revealed a hint of joy and excitement after hearing Sorrowful Silence's confirmation. Now that Zero Wing has a Tier 5 combatant and opened Zero Wing City to the public, the Eastern Continent's status quo will get reshuffled. That's right. Thank goodness we're already strategic allies with Zero Wing, Sorrowful Silence said, nodding in agreement with 16th Cloud. Tier 5 existences were different from Tier 4 existences. Tier 4 players couldn't capture a guild city all by themselves. That was a task that required a large number of Tier 4 players. When Tier 4 players were still scarce, Zero Wing might have been able to pose a significant threat to the various superpowers, but it didn't threaten their roots. However, the situation had changed. A Tier 5 player could effortlessly capture a guild city, even a superpower's headquarters, which meant that Zero Wing had the power to uproot and destroy superpowers. Moreover, now that Zero Wing's expert count had skyrocketed, it was entirely capable of expanding its territory and occupying more guild cities. It wouldn't face a manpower shortage even if it captured 5 or 6 more guild cities. When the Eastern Continent's various powers received this piece of news, the superpowers that had always been working against Zero Wing fell into an awkward situation. This was especially true for Starlink. Upon learning about Shifeng's promotion to Tier 5, Starlink's executives all had ashen complexions. Inside the guild leader's office of Starlink's residence in the Dark Knight Empire. "Commander, now that Black Flame has gotten promoted to Tier 5, he definitely won't spare Starlink. Should we migrate our experts to the Western Continent now?" a level 150, Tier 4 female ranger suggested as she looked at the handsome youth quietly reading documents in the office. "How many times have I told you to refer to me as guild leader? I am no longer just the commander of Tremorous Clown but Starlink's guild leader as well," Lu Tiendi said as he glanced at the enchanting female ranger. "Yes, guild leader," the ranger responded calmly as she looked at Lu Tiendi. She then repeated, "Should we migrate now?" "That won't be necessary." Looking at the report in his hands, Lu Tiendi explained nonchalantly, "Black Flame's promotion to Tier 5 is indeed a big problem for us, but there's no need for us to be afraid of him yet. The Eastern Continent's situation is no longer the same as before. The Outer World's forces are Zero Wing's biggest problem. Black Flame's promotion to Tier 5 should pose a considerable headache for those Outer World players. Moreover, Zero Wing has severed all chances of friendly relations with Mythology and Solar Temple. In the next war, the Eastern Continent's native NPC forces will definitely not provide Star Moon Kingdom and the Twin Towers Kingdom with any support. At that time, Zero Wing might not even be able to defend its own guild cities, let alone target other forces. If I were Black Flame, I wouldn't have exposed myself as a Tier 5 so soon and become a target for the Outerworld forces. Instead, I would focus on raiding dungeons and world bosses to raise my guild's strength. God's Domain isn't a single-player game. A single Tier 5 player cannot stop all of the Outerworld's NPC forces. The enchanting ranger's eyes brightened at Lu Tiandi's words. Doesn't this mean we have a chance? We can forget about Silverwing City since the Outerworld forces will capture it. On the other hand, we can get our hands on Stone Forest City since it is close to the Dark Knight Empire. Even if Black Flame is Tier 5, he can defend only one location at a time. Once the war resumes, he'll be preoccupied with Zero Wing City. At that time, we can find an opportunity to secure Stone Forest City, Lu Tiendi said, smiling. However, this isn't something we can accomplish alone. Go and contact the superpowers that have a grudge against Zero Wing now. I believe they will be more than willing to come on board this plan. Yes, sir. The ranger nodded. While God's Domain's various powers were reeling from the news of Shifeng's promotion to Tier 5 and preparing countermeasures, Shifeng had finalized his discussion with the Secret Pavilion and Netherworld Empire over the specifics of their partnership. Guild leader, now that we have the two guild legacies, we can probably nurture a batch of Void Realm experts and possibly Domain Realm experts within a short period, Firedance said. When she thought about how the Secret Pavilion and Netherworld Empire would be sending all their information on the realms of refinement to Zero Wing's headquarters tomorrow, she couldn't help feeling excited. Although the guild legacy Zero Wing received from Unyielding Soul previously was indeed valuable, the information provided allowed Zero Wing to nurture experts only to the Flowing Water realm at a reliable rate. It was still a far cry from a complete guild legacy. After all, only Void Realm experts could serve as a superpower's mainstay. Zero Wing had far too few of such peak experts. The only reason Zero Wing managed to produce as many Tier 4 experts as it had now was the various God's Domain legacies and excellent training environment the guild possessed. Even then, these Tier 4 experts could only rank among the lower rungs of Tier 4 players. That's right. Shifeng nodded. He similarly felt happy over this matter. Only when Zero Wing possessed a complete guild legacy of its own could it become a true titan in God's Domain. Once the guild had the Secret Pavilions and Netherworld Empire's guild legacies, it would no longer have to worry about lacking peak experts. Zero Wing could also recruit more talented players since these talents would no longer have to worry about Zero Wing lacking a guild legacy. Guild leader, what should we do next? Firedance asked. Now that we've become enemies with Mythology and Solar Temple, the Outerworld forces will target Star Moon Kingdom and the Twin Towers Kingdom once the war resumes. Should we start withdrawing our forces from those two kingdoms? Mythology and Solar Temple held significant influence in the Eastern Continent. It was also certain that the Outerworld forces would target Zero Wing. However, with Zero Wing's current strength, defending Star Moon Kingdom and the Twin Towers Kingdom wouldn't be feasible. To reduce Zero Wing's losses, the guild ought to begin pulling its forces out of these two kingdoms as soon as possible. Next. Chuckling, Shifeng said, go and gather all of the guild's Tier 4s now. Gather all of the guild's Tier 48. Shifeng's command confused Firedance. With the imminent war, what they should do was relocate the Mobile Fortress and Silverwing City. Otherwise, once the Outerworld's NPC army arrived, Zero Wing would lose both strongholds. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU yes. Smiling, Shifeng said, since I've reached Tier 5 already, it's about time we took care of the trouble over at the Orc Empire. We'll also use this opportunity to let the various superpowers know the consequences of offending us. The current God's Domain had far too little knowledge of Tier 5 existences. Even if Shifeng had killed Sichu Qingtian and Kaiyang Tianhe, the various superpowers only knew that he was much stronger than Tier 4 players. They still didn't understand what Tier 5 represented. I'll have them gather right away. Firedance burned with eagerness when she heard Shifeng's words. Ever since she had gotten promoted to Tier 4, She had never had a good fight or launched an all-out war against other superpowers. She also wasn't the only person to hold such sentiments. The other Tier 4 experts in the guild harbored similar thoughts. Now, they finally had the opportunity to display their strength. Chapter 2873, Present Zero Wing. Chapter 2873, Present Zero Wing Orc Empire, Silverwing City. Droves of people came and went on the city's main street. More than half of these people were NPCs from the neighboring kingdoms and empires. Due to the World Passage's opening and the invasion of the Outer Worlds player and NPC forces, both native players and NPCs had their range of activity restricted significantly. As the strongest city in the Orc Empire, one capable of fending off attacks from anything below Tier 5, Silverwing City had already become a mecca for the neighboring kingdoms and empires players and NPCs. Moreover, the news of Black Flame reaching Tier 5 sent the number of players visiting Silverwing City skyrocketing, resulting in overcrowding. All of these new arrivals sought to join Zero Wing and develop long-term in Silverwing City. At this time, Tier 4 experts radiating frightening auras appeared in Zero Wing's residence, one after another. The arrival of these experts instantly silenced the bustling residents. Even the players lining up to take the test to join the guild couldn't help feeling frightened. What's going on with Zero Wing? Why have so many Tier 4 experts gathered? Are they here to maintain order since there are so many people applying to join the guild? Amazing. So, this is Zero Wing? I saw over 50 Tier 4 experts already. Some super guilds don't have this many Tier 4 expert. That's not all of it. Look at their equipment. Every one of them has at least 3 pieces of level 150 epic equipment. I wonder when I'll be able to get one for myself. The eyes of the players lined up in the residence's courtyard widened in shock as they took in Zero Wing's Tier 4 experts. Previously, they had recognized that Zero Wing was a powerful guild but felt that it had become a superpower in God's domain only because of Zero Wing City and Black Flame's undefeated legend. Upon seeing the situation now, they realized that Zero Wing's foundation was far more terrifying than they thought. Not only did Zero Wing possess far more Tier 4 experts than most superpowers, but these experts also had superior equipment standards compared to the various superpowers Tier 4 experts. Currently, over 50 Tier 4 experts were gathered in the courtyard. This was a spectacular scene that those present would rarely get to see in their lifetimes. Not to mention, these Tier 4 experts were not repressing their auras at all. When these auras overlapped, they came together to generate an aura far more frightening than that of superior mythic monsters. Even Tier 3 experts shuddered involuntarily, forced to keep their distance from these Tier 4 experts. Why would Zero Wing gather so many Tier 4 experts here? Is it conducting a major operation or something? This is indeed unusual. A guild would gather so many of its Tier 4 experts in one place only for a special event. As the number of Tier 4 experts kept increasing, the non-members in the courtyard felt something amiss. Even Zero Wing's members started growing antsy at this situation. Ji Luorong looked at Violet Cloud, who had just arrived in the courtyard, and asked, "Big Sis Violet, do you know why the guild leader suddenly summoned us?" "I don't know, either. Big Sis Fire suddenly contacted me and told me to come here right away," Violet Cloud replied, shaking her head. She then visually inspected Ji Luorong and exclaimed in surprise, "Luorong, your mana body is at the 110% completion rate already. You've made so much progress." Ji Luorong had joined Zero Wing only recently. Although Zero Wing was much stronger than before, the fact that Ji Luorong managed to increase her mana body's completion rate from under 105% to her current 110% proved that she was monstrously talented. Hee. It's because of the sword Saint Legacy Big Sis Fire gave me. If not for it, I would have taken much longer to reach 110%, Ji Luorong said, smiling. Inwardly, she still felt a little delighted. After all, only a tiny number of experts in God's domain had managed to develop their mana bodies to a 110% completion rate at this stage of the game. However, when Ji Luorong carefully sensed the mana surrounding Violet Cloud's body, her delight instantly vanished. The mana close to Violet Cloud had already liquefied. Although it was limited to a small portion of her mana, it was still better than nothing. The fact that Violet Cloud could accomplish this feat meant that her mana body's completion rate had already reached 115% or above, according to what Shifeng told them. She might have even reached the 120% completion rate already. At this time, a masked, middle-aged man clad in black approached Ji Luorong. The aura this man radiated practically rivaled that of a superior mythic monster. This middle-aged man was none other than Crimson Mask, another Eternal Glory member who had joined Zero Wing. "Commander, why did Big Sis Fire suddenly call for us? Is something big going on?" Crimson Mask asked curiously as he looked at Ji Luorong. "I don't know. Big Sis Fire only told me to come here as soon as possible and nothing else." Ji Luorong shook her head. When she noticed the qualitative transformation of Crimson Mask's demeanor, she couldn't help sighing to herself ruefully. B*B furious smiley B greater than YB. Initially, Crimson Mask had opposed Eternal Glories joining Zero Wing. He felt that even without joining a guild, he could still develop Eternal Glory to great heights. However, after a few bouts with Fire Dance and receiving a sound thrashing each time, Crimson Mask had changed completely. Now, he was even referring to Fire Dance as Big Sis. However, Crimson Mask was much more fortunate than someone else, his fate considerably better. Besides Crimson Mask, a lunatic named Invincible Swallow had come to Zero Wing to challenge Violet Cloud, and the fate this lunatic suffered was simply terrible. That fight could be described as an adult beating up a toddler. Afterward, when Invincible Swallow returned for a rematch at a later date, Violet Cloud just so happened to be out on an errand. Aqua Rose had been present at the time, so he challenged her instead. After that match, Invincible Swallow began questioning his life. Even now, he was still training crazily in Stone Forest City's battle arena every day. While Zero Wing's Tier 4 members wondered why Fire Dance had suddenly gathered them, a man and a woman approached the courtyard from a distance. These two people were none other than Shifeng and Fire Dance. Shifeng was just walking casually, yet his steps distorted the space around him. It was as if the surrounding space couldn't contain his presence and could crumble at any time. In addition, as Shifeng did not bother concealing his aura, everyone present gasped involuntarily when they sensed it. Although Shifeng wasn't directing any hostility at anyone, merely letting his aura radiate freely, the Tier 4 players present felt their bodies becoming incredibly heavy as if someone had tied metal weights to their bodies. As for the Tier 3 players present, they instinctively retreated from Shifeng, not daring to move even an inch closer to him. "He's the guild leader." Crimson Mask was shocked as he looked at Shifeng. Before today, Crimson Mask had only ever heard the name of Black Flame. From the gossip circulating inside Zero Wing, he knew that Shifeng was Zero Wing's #1 expert and that his existence was the linchpin of the entire guild. Crimson Mask had thought that Shifeng was only slightly stronger than Fire Dance. However, given this situation, Shifeng wasn't just somewhat stronger than Fire Dance. He was practically standing on a whole other level. Aside from Crimson Mask, many of the Tier 4 experts who had joined Zero Wing recently were also stunned by Shifeng's terrifying aura. After glancing at the crowd gathered, Fire Dance reported to Shifeng, "Guild leader, apart from the 2 vice guild leaders and around a dozen others, who are currently occupied with important matters, all of the guild's Tier 4 members are here." "Not bad." Shifeng nodded in approval as he scanned the crowd before him. A total of 59 Tier 4 players waited in the courtyard, their levels ranging from level 148 to level 156. More than half of these players had broken through the 100% threshold of their mana bodies already, with nearly 20 having reached the 105% threshold and 7 at the 110% threshold. The 7 to reach 110% completion rate or above were Violet Cloud, Fire Dance, Ji Luorong, Alluring Summer, Yang Tianxing, Yi Luorfei, and Silent Blade. One could consider this lineup a spectacular force at this stage of the game. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU at this time, Kola, who had already reached level 150, could no longer hold back his excitement, asking, "Guild leader, are we going to raid the Orc capital city?" The Orc capital city's core area was a special secret land. The degree of danger in this secret land closely rivaled that of a God mode regional dungeon. The loot inside was likewise incredible. However, One required a sufficiently large team of Tier 4 players to raid it. This was why nobody had succeeded in raiding it even now. Meanwhile, Zero Wing currently had 59 Tier 4 players and 1 Tier 5 player gathered. They were already more than qualified to raid the Orc capital city's secret land. When everyone heard Kola's words, they immediately grew restless. After all, this was a level 150+ secret land they were talking about. They would definitely gain significant harvests if they raided it. No, I didn't gather you here for the Orc capital city, but for something else instead, Shifeng said, shaking his head. Something else? Kola and the others grew confused. That's right. Smiling, Shifeng explained, to ensure our survival in the upcoming war and Zero Wing's future development, I plan on annihilating ancient Rock City and eliminating Beast Emperor from the Orc Empire. Chapter 2874, Descending upon Ancient Rock City. Chapter 2874, Descending upon Ancient Rock City Orc Empire, Ancient Rock City. The walls of Ancient Rock City were over 50 meters tall. Despite numerous faux saint monsters roaming the barren land outside the city walls, the Tier 3 players patrolling atop the walls completely disregarded these monsters as if they did not exist. Surprisingly, the faux saint monsters that most of the Eastern Continent's players regarded as a nightmare showed no intentions of attacking Ancient Rock City. They behaved like scarecrows under the city walls. At this time, a merchant caravan, composed of over 100 players and over a dozen horse-drawn carriages, slowly approached Ancient Rock City from a distance. Despite catching sight of these players, the countless faux saint monsters roaming the barren land outside Ancient Rock City behaved as if they did not see this caravan. Looking at the level 120 faux saint monsters around him, a level 136, Tier 3 swordsman escorting the caravan exclaimed, "The Sacred Heart Amulet Saint's hand sold us is amazing. Those mythic faux saint monsters ignore us even when we're only 30 yards away from them." Even NPCs were helpless against the faux saint monsters running rampant in the many neighboring kingdoms and the Black Dragon Empire. The danger made it increasingly difficult for merchant caravans to make money. However, so long as a caravan carried a Sacred Heart amulet, it could avoid the faux saint monsters' attacks altogether. At the swordsman's words, the level 137, Tier 3 Guardian Knight sitting at the head of the caravan looked at the Sacred Heart amulet in his hand. With a hint of ambition in his eyes, he said, "I know, right? We must buy some more of these Sacred Heart amulets in Ancient Rock City. We can make a fortune reselling them in the neighboring kingdoms and empires." The Sacred Heart amulet was a non-bag space item. Although players could wear it on their person, they couldn't store it in their bags. It also couldn't be transported by teleportation. However, Saint's Hand sold the Sacred Heart amulet only in Ancient Rock City. None of Saint's Hand's other residences sold it. Many merchant players and adventurer teams had realized that they could make a fortune by purchasing the Sacred Heart amulets in bulk from Ancient Rock City and reselling them in the neighboring kingdoms and empires. Nowadays, many faux saint monsters roamed the territories of the neighboring kingdoms and the Black Dragon Empire. Leaving the safety of towns and cities would expose players to not only the standard monsters but also a large number of faux saint monsters. The Sacred Heart amulet could mitigate the danger. More importantly, the Sacred Heart amulet was a consumable, so it was always in high demand in the neighboring kingdoms and the Black Dragon Empire. Selling these amulets in these countries wouldn't be a problem. The main reason their Fighting Tiger adventurer team had invested a considerable fortune into hiring more than a dozen advanced carriages was to make an even bigger fortune off these amulets. At this time, a level 136, Tier 3 female ranger standing atop the leading carriage pointed at a distant silhouette and shouted, "Commander, we're almost at Ancient Rock City." "Okay. Everyone, get yourselves ready, newbies especially. Ancient Rock City is different from other guild cities," the leading Guardian Knight shouted through the team chat. Although the city prohibits fighting, it is still a bona fide dark city. There are tons of dark players there, so make sure not to get marked by them. Otherwise, we'll be in a ton of trouble once we leave the city. At the Guardian Knight's words, the team's veterans promptly took out a magic scroll for the Tier 1 Mana Guard spell and used it on themselves. With the Mana Guard active, the common tracking mark would be ineffective against them. Upon seeing this, The newbies to Ancient Rock City also took out the magic scrolls they prepared and used the scrolls on themselves. As the caravan trundled increasingly closer to Ancient Rock City, the newbies couldn't help gasping in shock at their first sight of the towering stronghold. Ancient Rock City was undoubtedly the most spectacular guild city they had ever seen in their careers in God's domain. Not only did the city have walls over 50 meters tall guarding it, but it covered an area rivaling NPC main cities. Most importantly, two 30-meter-tall faux saint monsters flanked the city's entrance. The two monsters wore steel plate armor, and each carried two gigantic swords. If one inspected these two monsters with an identification skill, one would find that they were level 160 superior mythic-ranked faux saint slayers. The aura of these two faux saint slayers sent involuntary shudders through all the players entering Ancient Rock City. Just by standing there, the two superior mythics made everyone feel as if their souls would get devoured. Besides the two faux saint slayers standing guard, more than 30 evil dark dragons wheeled in the sky above Ancient Rock City. These 50-meter-long evil dark dragons radiated auras close to rivaling the superior mythic-ranked faux saint slayers. When the Fighting Tiger Adventurer team arrived before the city gate, the members spotted a long line of players and NPCs waiting to enter the city. Many of these NPCs exuded dense bloodlust, which proved that they roamed the dark side of God's domain. At this time, however, even Tier 4 NPCs were obediently waiting in line. Amazing. There are so many Tier 4 monsters and NPCs here. Even a kingdom's capital city isn't comparable to this place, the first-time visitors among Fighting Tiger exclaimed. Of course. Ancient Rock City is Saint Han's main headquarters. Moreover, the city has already become a mecca for the dark forces operating in the neighboring kingdoms and the Black Dragon Empire. Chapter 2875 Defensive Structures. Ancient Rock City even the Outer World forces will have difficulty taking down Ancient Rock City in peril. Many well-known and top adventurer teams are developing here. This is crazy. The leading Guardian Knight must have lost its mind. From what I heard, how dare they attack Ancient Rock City? Has also dispatched many experts to garrison inhabitants doubted Chifeng's declaration, with many of them considering in the Orc Empire. Nobody will dare target it. Strengthened the Saints Hand member conducting inspections nearby overheard the Guardian Knights to those of other guild cities, putting on a prideful expression. Stationed within the city were more than enough. Ancient Rock City was only one step away from becoming a main city. Not to mention, the dark combat power of over a dozen countries gathered in the cities of the various superpowers. Apart from dark guilds, had Saints Hand not been wary of the outer forces among these dark forces, it would have long since flattened the neighboring kingdoms and the Black Dragon in Ancient Rock City, becoming an even treated the city as their base of operations. Anyone who dared to attack Ancient Rock City would make an enemy of these dark forces. A gigantic figure suddenly approached or dark NPC forces from the distant sky. Every one of them had at least 2 or 3 fast as a mighty gale under their command, and it stopped only after arriving in front of the city. Miracle had recently garrisoned the behemoth over 100 meters long hung in the sky, roughly 400 yards from Ancient Rock City right now. One could conquer an entire kingdom. Several dozen players stood on this steel behemoth. Most importantly, latest Ancient Rock City was currently an advanced guild city. This steel behemoth only one step away from becoming a main guild city. Rock City went into Rock City's resident players. The Crimson Dragon flying ship by this situation. That Zero Wings flying ship, who was conducting research in the city lord's mansion, Black Flame inadvertently crushed the research almost everybody held when he received was familiar with the Crimson Dragon flying ship. Black Flame. After all, how bold of you. This thing had long since you've got an arrogant while I was lying low. Zero Wing was even using some of these flying ships to transport cargo across the sea, to the envy of many rumored to have reached Tier 5 already. Zero Wing's sudden visit to the Sacred Rock City, the level 152 of the city's players, Tier 4 berserker, meanwhile, who had made spotting the Crimson Dragon flying ship, news of Chifeng's promotion to Tier 5 patrolling the city's airspace reached the ears of God's domain's various powers. The two faux saint slayers standing guard by the city's entrance also raised their head, had to be wary putting away the tools going on full alert against the flying ship. Glanced at Saint as everyone in Ancient Rock City fell into panic and confusion. Chifeng looked down at the city below from aboard the Crimson Dragon flying ship and shouted, "I want to see what exactly gives Black Flame the confidence to act arrogantly from my Ancient Rock City. If you do not wish to get dragged into Saint's Hand's Beast Emperor turned around anyone who doesn't withdraw a robust 5 minutes will disappear covered in flashing runes together with Ancient Guard before the research room, silently trailed him. Yes, sir." Furious Fist hurriedly followed after the robust man. Less than 3 minutes after Chifeng's declaration, many players and adventurer teams, afraid of trouble, had already withdrawn from ancient Rock City. Only dark players and a few courageous normal players chose to remain. At the same time, players from the various dark adventurer teams and dark guilds also gathered at ancient Rock City's entrance, one after another, and watched the fleeing players. These cowards. Zero Wing sent only a few dozen players, yet these people are already running away. Zero Wing is famous, after all. It's normal for them to run away. Not to mention, Black Flame is also here. It'd be strange for them not to escape. These people are simply idiots. Zero Wing won its past battles only because of the powerful defenses of its cities. That's right. So what if Zero Wing managed to produce a Tier 5 player? We'll teach these guys what it means to offend us dark forces. The dark players revealed expressions of rage and excitement as they looked up at the Crimson Dragon flying ship. Zero Wing's reputation was through the roof right now. Moreover, Shifeng had gotten promoted to Tier 5. Hence, players were starting to consider Zero Wing God's Domain's #1 guild. If a battle were to occur in the outside world, dark players like themselves would indeed be afraid of Shifeng. However, it was a different story if the battle took place inside ancient Rock City. With the city's magic array, they could still take him on with the many Tier 4 players they had. Not to mention, a large number of Foe Saint monsters protected ancient Rock City, including 2 superior mythic-ranked Foe Saint slayers. Even if they couldn't kill Shifeng, they could, at least, make the other members of Zero Wing suffer. As the 5-minute limit approached, the number of players retreating from ancient Rock City also increased. At this time, the players that had withdrawn from ancient Rock City suddenly felt a chill envelop their bodies. Even Tier 3 experts found themselves partially kneeling on the ground. The next moment, a group of 40 players flew out from the City Lord's mansion. Apart from Furious Fist and Saint's Hand's Tier 4 executives, 17 players on the team were people that none of ancient Rock City's inhabitants had ever seen before. These 17 players looked nothing like humans. Not only were their bodies pitch black, but there were also flashing runes engraved all over their bodies. These players' auras were also stronger than even that of superior mythic monsters. When combined, their auras transformed into a tsunami that swept through the entire city and its surroundings. Amazing. Is this Saint's Hand's rumored bloodstained Night Legion? That's not all. Even Beast Emperor left the City Lord's mansion. It seems we'll have a good show this time. Indeed. I heard that Beast Emperor has constantly been plotting revenge on Zero Wing after getting slaughtered at the Secret Covenant Tower. Now that Zero Wing has come knocking on his door, there's no way Beast Emperor will spare Zero Wing. The various major powers experts standing atop the city walls were surprised when they saw Beast Emperor and the Bloodstained Knights making an appearance. At the same time, they were shocked by the power Saint's Hand displayed. The superpowers on the Eastern continent had always been fearful of Saint's Hand, and this situation greatly confused the various major powers. However, after seeing Saint's Hand's top combatants, they realized that the superpowers' fear of Saint's Hand wasn't without basis. Setting aside the fact that Saint's Hand had over 20 Tier 4 experts at the Void Realm or above, just the 17 rumored Bloodstained Knights were more than enough to instill fear into any player force. After all, even a Tier 4 player would tremble in fear if they had to go up against a Bloodstained Knight, let alone 17 Bloodstained Knights simultaneously. That would be a nightmare. Shortly afterward, Beast Emperor's group arrived above the city gate. Seeing this, the various powers' leadership promptly stepped forward to greet Beast Emperor. 1,000 Miles, one of Miracle's vice guild leaders, was even among them. 1,000 Miles' actions astonished the various major powers present. They never thought that even a superpower like Miracle would defer to Beast Emperor. After Beast Emperor responded to a few greetings, he flew into the air with his subordinates and glared at Shifeng on the Crimson Dragon flying ship. He then said coldly, "Black Flame, you and I could have stayed out of each other's way in the Orc Empire, yet you chose to come to attack me. So long as you apologize right now, I can ignore this transgression for the time being. Otherwise, none of you will be returning alive today." After Beast Emperor finished speaking, a frightening amount of evil energy erupted from the 17 bloodstained knights behind him, distorting the surrounding space and muddying it. The terrifying power within the evil energy made even those who had fled more than 1,000 yards from the city tremble. Moreover, the two foe Saint Slayers had flown to flank the Crimson Dragon flying ship, while the 30+ evil Dark Dragons had surrounded it, thoroughly sealing off all of Zero Wing's escape routes. The fleeing players gasped at this scene. With such a force under Saint's Hand's command, the guild could take on even an empire. Damn it! I thought Saint's Hand was going to suffer this time, but it seems I miscalculated. Zero Wing has always relied on Black Flame to survive. Now, it seems Zero Wing has finally met its match. If this situation isn't handled properly, apart from Black Flame, the other Zero Wing members present probably won't leave alive. At this time, even a fool could tell how powerful Saint's Hand's forces were. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that even an NPC force with a Tier 5 combatant under its command wouldn't dare to offend Saint's Hand casually, let alone Zero Wing. Apologize. Shifeng laughed. Beast Emperor, it seems you're growing senile. Have you forgotten how you died at my hands last time? Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EUU, bastard. Shifeng's words enraged Beast Emperor. However, before Beast Emperor could say anything more, mana exploded from Shifeng's body. Immediately, an indescribably heavy pressure descended on the entire ancient rock city. World creation. The next moment, Beast Emperor and the others plummeted to the ground one after another. Even the Tier 4 experts standing on the city walls found themselves on one knee under the strong pressure. Chapter 2876. Shock. Chapter 2876. Shock. Impossible. Every player inside Ancient Rock City nearly had their eyes fall out of their sockets when they saw Beast Emperor and the other Tier 45 plummeting to the ground. Even the Zero Wing members present were stunned. This scene thoroughly exceeded their imagination. In the current God's Domain, Tier 4 players were already considered peak combatants and displayed a guild's foundation. Yet, under Shifeng's mana domain, Beast Emperor and the other Tier 4 combatants on his side could exhibit only 20% or so of their usual combat power. They even lost their ability to fly and manipulate ambient mana. In the blink of an eye, these existences that originally stood at the peak of God's Domain had become no different from Tier 3 players. At this time, let alone a Tier 5 player like Shifeng, even Tier 4 experts could slaughter Ancient Rock City's defenders. This is the strength of Tier 5s. When the players who had evacuated Ancient Rock City looked at Shifeng hovering proudly above the city, an indescribable sense of shock and horror filled their hearts. As veteran players of God's Domain, they knew that a significant difference existed between tiers. They also knew that a Tier 5 player undoubtedly stood at the apex of all players in the current God's Domain. However, only after witnessing the power of a Tier 5 player did they understand how large the gap between Tier 4 and Tier 5 was. In front of a Tier 5 existence, Tier 4 players would only be making fools of themselves if they tried to win by Zerg tactic. The Tier 4 monsters among Ancient Rock City's defenders, though, weren't as badly off as the Tier 4 players. Because monsters mainly relied on their basic attributes and rarely manipulated the ambient mana to do combat, their penalty was not as large as the Tier 4 players. Regardless, the mythic-ranked evil Dark Dragons still had their combat power reduced by half, whereas the superior mythic-ranked foe Saint Slayers had theirs reduced by 30%. Moreover, all of them lost their ability to fly. Against Tier 4 players capable of flight, they would be at a significant disadvantage. Unlike everyone else, Shifeng wasn't surprised at the scene before him. Everyone failed to understand that his mana domain was different from the average mana domain. Existences at the world creation standard could create a small world within their mana domains. The power of such a mana domain was on an entirely different level compared to the average mana domain. Even a Tier 5 existence would be at a disadvantage if they got caught within a Tier 5 world creation expert's mana domain without any countermeasures, let alone Tier 4 players and monsters. Meanwhile, after experiencing this unexpected turn of events, a hint of fear had surfaced in Beast Emperor's eyes. Despite this situation, he still sneered, "Black Flame, don't get too delighted just yet. Don't forget that this is Ancient Rock City." As soon as Beast Emperor finished speaking, an enormous, threefold magic array manifested from the City Lord's mansion. After the magic array gathered mana from the surroundings for a brief moment, it released pulses of mana that enveloped the city. Immediately, the city defenders felt the heavy pressure on their bodies disappear. Now, although Shifeng's mana domain still subjected everyone to a certain degree of suppression, their combat power had recovered to 80% of their usual. More importantly, they had also regained their ability to fly. Shifeng was slightly surprised when he looked at the barrier enveloping ancient Rock City. What a powerful barrier! It seems you've invested quite a lot into this city. His mana domain could render even master magic barriers useless. One would need to use at least a Grandmaster magic barrier to contend with his mana domain. Meanwhile, Grandmaster magic arrays were incredibly rare in God's domain, let alone a Grandmaster magic array that could cover an entire city. The value of every set of scrolls for such a magic array could rival that of fragmented legendary items. Black Flame. Do you think you're the only one with the means to defend cities? Looking at Shifeng, Beast Emperor sneered, this is an ancient Grandmaster magic array. Although ancient Rock City hasn't reached the main city level yet, it is no weaker than a main city in terms of defense. Although you're tier 5, don't even think about taking down ancient Rock City. A main city's defensive magic array was wholly capable of withstanding tier 5 attacks. So long as the magic array had a constant energy supply, even tier 5 existences shouldn't think of penetrating it. Meanwhile, exhausting the energy supply of a main city's defensive magic array wasn't something just one tier 5 existence could accomplish. One would need several tier 5 individuals or siege weapons with tier 5 destructive power to do so. However, Zero Wing only had one tier 5 combatant now. In other words, breaking through ancient Rock City's defensive barrier would be nothing but a pipe dream. When Beast Emperor finished speaking, the members of the various powers in ancient Rock City sighed in relief. They then looked at Shifeng with sneers on their faces. Black Flame, so what if you're tier 5? That's right. What can you do by yourself? When Shifeng had extended his mana domain before, everyone within ancient Rock City had felt strong pressure overwhelming them. Saint's Hand's tier 4 experts were no exception. However, now that ancient Rock City had deployed its defensive magic array, even a tier 5 player like Shifeng would be helpless against them. Next, all they needed to do was fight a war of attrition, something they did not fear in the slightest. After all, ancient Rock City had accumulated a massive stockpile of magic crystals from the sales of Sacred Heart amulets. Not to mention, the Outer World's NPC forces would soon begin the second war against the Eastern Continent's native forces. And in this upcoming war, the Outer World forces would set Zero Wing as their primary target. Zero Wing couldn't afford a war of attrition with ancient Rock City at all. The longer it fought, the worse off it would be in the upcoming war. Guild leader, let's attack the barrier together. I want to see how long it can last against our combined attacks. Fire Dance said, gnashing her teeth as she looked at ancient Rock City's arrogant residents. That's right. If it spells with tier 5 power, I can use a few as well. I refuse to believe we can't break this barrier, Zhao Yueru said, nodding in agreement with Fire Dance. For other tier 4 players, exhibiting tier 5 power would indeed be a challenging task. However, her Frost Flame's Wrath was a top-tier fragmented legendary weapon. With it, the fire and ice-type tier 4 spells she cast could exhibit tier 5 power. No, that won't be necessary, Shifeng said, shaking his head. Zhao Yueru was a bona fide mobile turret. If he hadn't gotten promoted to tier 5, she would rank at the very top of Zero Wing in terms of firepower. However, besieging a city was different from attacking monsters. The defenders inside the city could launch attacks to counter Zhao Yueru's spells. The defenders could even target her directly, preventing her from casting her spells altogether. This would drastically reduce Zhao Yueru's ability to damage the defensive magic array. Having only the occasional tier 5 attack land on the defensive magic array would yield hardly any effect. But we can't just sit still and do nothing, right? Zhao Yueru said in annoyance. Although she knew that she couldn't contribute much, it was still better than nothing. Moreover, if they allowed Saint's Hand to continue behaving so arrogantly, it would deal a massive blow to Zero Wing's morale. After all, Zero Wing had already declared to the public that it would capture ancient Rock City. Currently, everyone was watching this fight. The various powers absent from this battlefield were no exception. They were all observing every detail of the battlefield and tensely awaiting the outcome of this siege. If Zero Wing won, then the various superpowers would no longer dare entertain thoughts of resisting Zero Wing on the eastern continent. However, if Zero Wing returned foiled, many superpowers would begin having designs on Zero Wing. They might even ally with Saint's Hand to deal with Zero Wing. Of course not, Shifeng said, chuckling. I'm merely saying that you don't need to take action. All you need to do is watch. Just watch. Zhao Yueru looked at Shifeng in confusion. The guild city in front of them rivaled a main city. How could they possibly capture it just by looking at it? The other Zero Wing members present were also confused, failing to understand what was going through their guild leader's mind. However, Shifeng did not bother explaining himself. Instead, he flew to an altitude several hundred meters above ancient Rock City and began chanting an incantation, his chanting causing the surrounding mana to swarm toward him. Upon seeing Shifeng's actions, ancient Rock City's defenders laughed. Are you trying to use a Tier 5 large-scale destruction spell? Beast Emperor sneered as he looked at Shifeng. This is nothing but a futile struggle. Let alone a Tier 5, sword saint like yourself, even a Tier 5 divine mage can't do anything against ancient Rock City's defensive magic array. Everyone, prepare for battle. Target the flying ship. Beast Emperor ignored Shifeng's attack, as there was no way weakened Tier 4 attacks could do anything against Shifeng. However, it was a different story for the Crimson Dragon flying ship. The flying ship wouldn't last long before a barrage of Tier 4 attacks. It would fall quickly even if Zero Wing's Tier 4 experts defended it. The many Tier 4 magical classes atop the city walls promptly began casting their respective spells, while the other Tier 4 ranged classes launched attacks at the flying ship. The 30+ evil dark dragons took to the skies and bombarded the flying ship. The Zero Wing members aboard the Crimson Dragon flying ship felt an invisible pressure weighing down their bodies. Upon seeing the oncoming attacks, Fire Dance yelled hurriedly, magical classes, deploy defensive magic arrays. Even a Tier 5 legendary monster would suffer if it tried to take on the attacks of more than 100 Tier 4 individuals, let alone Tier 4 players like themselves. Moreover, the Crimson Dragon flying ship only had Tier 4 combat power. However, just as the two sides were about to clash, Shifeng finished his incantation's final verse. Suddenly, the sky darkened, and a spatial tear spanning over 1,000 yards appeared above ancient Rock City. The spatial tear made it seem as if the sky was about to collapse, inevitably drawing everyone's attention. What is Black Flame trying to do? Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU questions filled everyone's mind as they gazed at the gigantic spatial tear. Simultaneously, everyone felt an inexplicable chill overwhelm their heart. They could sense something terrifying in the spatial tear, and this feeling made even their souls shudder with dread. Before anyone could say anything more, a gigantic claw the size of a 4-story building extended from the spatial tear. Subsequently, a titanic figure gradually emerged from the spatial tear, blotting out the sky completely. When everyone eventually discerned the identity of this figure, they were dumbfounded. A dragon? Chapter 2877, Divine Dragon's Might. Chapter 2877, Divine Dragon's Might. A Tier 4 dragon? It's a real Tier 4 dragon. Any veteran of God's domain would have heard of the creatures known as dragons. Ancient Rock City's inhabitants, who were at Tier 3 on average, had an even better understanding of dragons. However, when everyone in ancient Rock City saw the dragon in the sky, they finally understood how terrifying dragons were. The Tier 4 dragon that had just appeared above ancient Rock City was around 500 meters long, its massive body blotting out the sun. Its aura covered a radius of several thousand yards, making every Tier 3 player in that area shudder involuntarily. Compared to the Tier 4 evil dark dragons protecting ancient Rock City, this Tier 4 dragon was akin to a god. This is a fake. This must be a fake. How can a player summon a real Tier 4 dragon? The various powers experts standing atop the city walls revealed expressions of shock and horror. A Tier 4 dragon rivaled Tier 5 existences. Current Tier 4 players couldn't afford to provoke it. Likewise, it shouldn't be something players could control. Nevertheless, Shifeng had summoned a Tier 4 dragon. How could they believe this? This situation was even more unbelievable and shocking than Shifeng's promotion to Tier 5. After all, given enough time, a dragon would reach Tier 5 without fail. Meanwhile, a Tier 5 dragon was practically an invincible existence in God's domain. Everyone, don't panic. While a Tier 4 dragon is scary, Ancient Rock City's defensive magic array isn't weak, either. Saint's Heart's guild leader, Furious Fist, shouted hurriedly when he saw the panicked defenders. It's just one more Tier 5 combatant. So long as we combine our strengths, Black Flame will still be helpless against us. Furious Fist's words calmed Ancient Rock City's experts somewhat. When they remembered how extraordinary the city's defensive magic array was, they felt that defending against Zero Wing's assault wouldn't be impossible. However, regardless of this battle's outcome, most likely nobody in God's domain would dare provoke Zero Wing anymore. Zero Wing would also officially become God's domain's #1 guild. After all, which player force in God's domain could contend against the combination of a Tier 5 player and a Tier 4 dragon? At this time, some of the dark guilds based in Ancient Rock City started regretting making an enemy of Zero Wing. While they might escape tragedy today, thanks to Ancient Rock City, what about the future? They couldn't possibly hide in Ancient Rock City forever, right? While the various dark guilds regretted their decisions, Thousand Miles's complexion turned indescribably ashen as he looked at the dragon in the sky. Noticing Thousand Miles's pallidness, Furious Fist asked, "Vice Guild Leader Miles, what's wrong? Is there a problem with that dragon?" No matter how many times Furious Fist inspected the dragon hovering in the sky with his ordinary identification skill, the result said this dragon was the real deal. Moreover, there was no doubt that the dragon was Tier 4, and it had reached level 165. However, he couldn't get any further information on the dragon without a higher-ranking identification skill. As a Vice Guild Leader of Miracle, Thousand Miles should have a high-ranking identification skill, so it wouldn't be strange if he managed to see some more information. A look of despair appeared on Thousand Miles's face as he said, "That's not just a dragon. That's a divine dragon. A silver divine dragon. Divine dragon." Furious Fist was stunned. Glaring at Thousand Miles, he demanded, "Brother Miles, you're not joking with me, right? If you are, this joke isn't funny at all." Divine dragons were kings among the dragon race. An ordinary dragon and a divine dragon were as different as an ordinary monster and an archaic species. The two were completely different creations. Turning to Furious Fist, Thousand Miles smiled wryly and said, "I wish that were the case, but do you think I'm joking?" Thousand Miles regretted using his high-ranking identification skill on the dragon. Had he not probed any further, he would have held some hope for victory in his heart. Now, though, no such hope existed. Meanwhile, when the players who had fled Ancient Rock City gazed at the distant silver divine dragon, they were flabbergasted for a long time. Is this why Zero Wing was confident in attacking Ancient Rock City? A divine dragon. I must be dreaming. That's right. This must be a dream. I just reached Tier 4, so how could Black Flame have reached Tier 5 and gained control over a divine dragon already? This is a dream. Many people began deluding themselves as they looked at the silver divine dragon, none of them willing to face reality. However, Beast Emperor, who stood atop the city gate, had no plans of giving up. Glaring at the divine dragon in the sky, he ranted with a maniacal expression, "Black Flame, so what if you have a divine dragon? My ancient Grandmaster magic array can stop it." The silver divine dragon in the sky suddenly opened its maw before Beast Emperor could continue. The next instant, all mana within a 10,000-yard radius vanished, and everyone within this area felt indescribably stifled. Roar. Accompanied by a deafening roar, a beam of divine light devoured the entire Ancient Rock City. Divine Dragon's Breath. When the dazzling divine light descended upon Ancient Rock City, it forced all players within a radius of several tens of thousands of yards to shield their eyes. The divine light gradually faded away, and only then did everyone open their eyes again to inspect the breath attack's effect. This How? Impossible. When the players standing several thousand yards from ancient Rock City saw the city again, they were utterly dumbfounded. The divine dragon's breath didn't just shatter ancient Rock City's defensive magic array. It had even vaporized the towering city lord's mansion at the center of the city along with almost every player and building in the city. Taking their place was a massive crater that spanned the entire city. Only the Tier 4 experts on the city walls who managed to activate their life-saving skills in time and the two foe Saint Slayers had survived the attack. Everything inside ancient Rock City's perimeter wall had been reduced to a wasteland. No. This isn't possible. Beast Emperor fell into chaos and madness as he looked at what remained of his city. And he wasn't alone. Furious Fist's mind also stopped working at this cataclysmic scene, his body crumbling powerlessly to the ground. BCRB, all of the investments we've made, all of the forces we've gathered, gone. As if they were nothing but a joke. 1,000 Miles, who had also survived the ordeal, was rendered speechless for a long time. One attack. It had taken just one attack for ancient Rock City, a city rivaling main cities, to disappear. Who could believe this? Zero Wing's members aboard the Crimson Dragon flying ship were similarly stunned by this scene. This was especially true for Ji Luorong and Crimson Mask, who had been active on the Western continent until recently. An indescribable sense of shock filled the two. The Western continent had legends describing the dragon's devastating power and how a single breath attack could destroy entire cities. There were also stories of kingdoms meeting their end because they had angered a dragon. Previously, Ji Luorong and Crimson Mask treated these stories as mere folklore. Now, they finally understood that those stories weren't just legends to embellish God's domain but fact. In reality, even Shifeng was shocked by this outcome. This is the power of a divine dragon. When Shifeng saw the ruin before him and Auerbach's nonchalant demeanor, he was momentarily at a loss for words. Shifeng had seen Tier 6 God-ranked experts single-handedly destroy cities in the past. However, compared to the power displayed by those Tier 6 God-ranked experts, Auerbach's performance gave Shifeng a much greater shock. This was because Auerbach was only at Tier 4. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Originally, Shifeng thought that Auerbach's breath attack would, at most, deplete a significant portion of the defensive magic array's energy. Yet, the entire city had disappeared. He couldn't help looking at the crazed Beast Emperor apologetically. He even wanted to tell Beast Emperor that he hadn't done this on purpose. Of course, while Shifeng pitied Beast Emperor, he did not show the latter any mercy. Unsheathing the abyssal blade, he activated the Tier 4 Darkness Bind, binding Beast Emperor and the other surviving defenders. Now that ancient Rock City's defensive magic array was no more, Beast Emperor and the others were subject to the full power of Shifeng's mana domain. Without the ability to manipulate the ambient mana, Beast Emperor and the others were basically Tier 3 players with above-average basic attributes. Hence, they were utterly incapable of resisting Shifeng and got caught easily. And under the restraint of Darkness Bind, they couldn't die even if they wanted to. After Shifeng destroyed ancient Rock City and captured Beast Emperor and the others, news of this battle spread like wildfire across the entire God's domain. Chapter 2878, Ancient Rock City's Secret. Chapter 2878, Ancient Rock City's Secret. Fire Dragon Empire, Flame Dragon City, Mythology's residence. A Tier 3 ranger barged into the meeting room occupied by Mythology's executives, earning the dissatisfaction of Sichu Qingtian and the others in the room. Looking at the ranger, Sichu Qingtian asked in a displeased tone, "Did something happen?" "It's news of Zero Wing," the ranger said hurriedly. "According to your orders, we've kept tabs on Zero Wing. However, just a moment ago, Zero Wing destroyed ancient Rock City." Upon hearing the ranger's words, Cold Shadow responded dubiously, "Impossible. It's only been around 10 minutes since Zero Wing arrived at ancient Rock City. Even if Black Flame is Tier 5, they can't possibly capture the city so quickly." Ancient Rock City was Beast Emperor's base, and the man had long since armed the city to the teeth. Beast Emperor also had the evil god's temple's backing, a powerful existence capable of going against the war god's temple. Although Shifeng was a Tier 5 player, Capturing ancient rock city should be tough. No. Vice Guild Leader, Zero Wing didn't capture ancient rock city. It razed the entire city in one blow. Ancient rock city is now a ruin, the ranger countered, shaking his head. He then took out a magic crystal recorder and placed it on the meeting table. This is the battle video we received. Immediately, the magic crystal recorder projected the image of a dragon. With just one breath attack, this dragon leveled the entire ancient rock city, leaving nothing unscathed. A Tier 4 divine dragon. It managed to destroy the entire ancient rock city in one hit. Deathly silence enveloped the meeting room momentarily as Mythology's executives stared at the video projection with gloomy expressions. Shock and fear also surfaced in their eyes. Their astonishment was so obvious that even the reporting Tier 3 ranger could sense it. No wonder. No wonder he dared refuse our two guilds' partnership. So this is the reason for his confidence. Cold Shadow looked at the Tier 4 divine dragon and the ruined ancient rock city in the video with complicated feelings. Shifeng had been a minor character unworthy of her attention in the past when Zero Wing was a guild reliant on external items to defend its territories. Yet, both Shifeng and Zero Wing were now bona fide titans that even Mythology could not and would not dare to offend. What was even more laughable was that just a moment ago, Mythology's executives had been discussing how to take revenge on Zero Wing in secret. Now, however, Black Flame. I indeed underestimated you before. Sichu Qingtian's gaze grew cold as he looked at the video projection. Repressing the reluctance in his heart, he uttered slowly, temporarily halt all retaliation against Zero Wing we discussed before. Practically every superpower in God's domain had heard about Shifeng killing Sichu Qingtian in Zero Wing City. As a result, Sichu Qingtian's reputation had taken a nosedive. Although Sichu Qingtian yearned to take revenge on Zero Wing, he knew full well that doing so right now would be no different from suicide. With the combined strength of a Tier 5 player and such a frightening divine dragon, Zero Wing could destroy every guild city in God's domain. Damn it. Are we going to let Zero Wing go, just like that? A Mythology executive complained in a hate-filled voice. Sichu Qingtian shook his head. Looking at Shifeng's projected image, he sneered, of course not. There is only one thing we need to do now, and that is wait. We wait until the start of the Second War. Even if Zero Wing has Black Flame and that divine dragon, it still can't stop the Outer World's advance. Also, start searching ancient ruins for clues to the Tier 5 promotion. Spare no cost at all. We must have our own Tier 5. Although Sichu Qingtian did not wish to admit it, the era of Tier 4 was already over. Tier 5 players would rule the future. If Mythology did not have its own Tier 5 player, its position as one of the 5 great superguilds would be in danger. Shortly after Sichu Qingtian issued his command, the other superpowers of God's domain also issued similar commands. They frantically searched ancient ruins for clues to help their Tier 4 experts get promoted to Tier 5 as quickly as possible while quietly awaiting the arrival of the Second War of Worlds. Meanwhile, inside the Orc Empire's ancient rock city, Fire Dance and the other Tier 4 experts of Zero Wing finally killed the 2 surviving foe Saint Slayers. The deaths of the 2 superior mythic monsters granted everyone a generous amount of EXP, and they all managed to gain at least 1 level. However, compared to the EXP the foe Saint Slayers contributed, Shifeng was more interested in the pitch-black stones the 2 monsters dropped after death. Previously, whenever players killed mythic-ranked foe Saint monsters, the player who landed the finishing blow would have a dark grey mist invade their body. This grey mist would increase the player's affinity with mana for a lengthy period. This was also why Shifeng had not taken action against the foe Saint Slayers and had instead allowed Fire Dance and the others to kill the 2 monsters. Yet, the 2 Slayers did not release any mist from their bodies. Instead, they each dropped a fist-sized stone. What dense soul energy! Shifeng was surprised when he spread his senses across the 2 black stones. When his concentration had reached Tier 5, his soul had also undergone a qualitative improvement. It was akin to his soul liquefying. However, compared to the soul energy in the pitch-black stone, his soul energy was nothing. After all, these 2 stones were solidified soul energy. Guild leader, are those things useful? Kola asked curiously as he looked at the black stones in Shifeng's hands. More than that. Smiling, Shifeng said to Zero Wings members, they're even better than fragmented legendary items. Is there anyone here with concentration at the Tier 4 peak standard? After Zero Wings members exchanged glances, only Violet Cloud stepped forward. Guild leader, my concentration reached the Tier 4 peak standard recently. However, the two vice guild leaders should have reached this standard too. Good. Take this soul stone. Afterward, find a quiet place and eat it. It should increase your concentration standard. If you're lucky, you might even raise it to Tier 5, Shifeng said as he handed one of the black stones to Violet Cloud. He then said to the others, if anyone else manages to reach the Tier 4 peak standard, you can get this soul stone from me. The other Zero Wing members nodded their heads, none of them objecting to Shifeng's method of distribution. However, when Beast Emperor, who was restrained in a corner, saw Shifeng's actions, he dearly wanted to strangle Shifeng to death. Shifeng was actually treating the two faux Saint Slayers' cores as a snack and letting others eat them. This was simply outrageous. He had fed the two faux Saint Slayers the souls of tens of thousands of Tier 3 players to transform their cores into a soul core. So long as he had a soul core, he could create another faux Saint Slayer. Yet, Violet Cloud received one of these soul cores as a snack. Black Flame. You'll pay for this. Beast Emperor bellowed as he glared at Shifeng. It doesn't matter even if you caught me, the evil god's temple's rise is already a foregone conclusion. At that time, the faux saint army will devour everyone from Zero Wing. Foregone conclusion? Shifeng laughed. Looking at the restrained Beast Emperor, he pointed at the ruined Saint's Hand residence in the distance and asked, are you talking about that secret land beneath your guild residence? I don't know what you're talking about. Beast Emperor stammered in a panic. No need to pretend. Do you think Tier 5 is a joke? Shifeng rolled his eyes at Beast Emperor. While Ancient Rock City's defensive magic array was still active, Shifeng hadn't been able to sense the secret land's existence. However, with the defensive magic array gone, nothing in Ancient Rock City could hide from his Tier 5 world creation mana domain. Moreover, Shifeng had already been suspicious about how Beast Emperor had managed to develop Ancient Rock City to its current level. Zero Wing had poured an astronomical amount of resources into developing Stone Forest City and Zero Wing City. Yet, the two cities were still stuck as intermediate cities, far from becoming advanced cities. So, how did Ancient Rock City develop into an advanced city that was close to becoming a main city? Only a fool wouldn't suspect there was a secret behind this achievement. Black Flame. Beast Emperor was momentarily enraged at Shifeng's ridicule. However, he soon calmed down and said, so what if you've discovered the evil god's secret land? Do you think you can defend it? Even if you've captured me, I will still spread this information to the entire god's domain. At that time, even the outer world forces will be drawn here. Do you think you can stop all of them? The evil god's secret land was originally his biggest secret and something he had invested heavily in. This secret land was also why he had gained his current power. Although the evil god's secret land would be of significantly less help to those not belonging to the evil god's temple, the benefits were still enough to drive everyone in God's domain wild. How would I know if I don't try? Suddenly, Shifeng executed a slash at Furious Fist, instantly killing him. As Furious Fist collapsed reluctantly to the ground and transformed into countless particles of light, two items appeared in his place. Of the two items Furious Fist dropped, one was a piece of epic equipment, while the other was a token. Beast Emperor's complexion paled when he saw the token. This token was none other than Ancient Rock City's City Lord's token. With this token, one could take control of Ancient Rock City. Only, Beast Emperor couldn't figure out how Shifeng knew Furious Fist had held the City Lord's token. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. It seems my luck is good. Shifeng was a little surprised when he saw the City Lord's token. It dropped on the first kill. Beast Emperor nearly fainted when he heard Shifeng's words. What Beast Emperor didn't know was that aside from Beast Emperor, everyone else held no value as prisoners in Shifeng's opinion. Meanwhile, the City Lord's token couldn't be taken out of the city. Otherwise, It would be automatically teleported back to the City Lord's mansion after some time. And with how precious the City Lord's token was, Beast Emperor naturally wouldn't leave it to just anyone. The person holding the token would have to be a Tier 4 guild executive of Saint's Hand at the very least. Hence, if Furious Fist hadn't dropped the City Lord's token, Shifeng would have killed Saint's Hand's Tier 4 experts one by one until it dropped. The instant Shifeng picked up the City Lord's token, a system notification rang in his ears. Chapter 2879, Colossal Wealth. Chapter 2879, Colossal Wealth System. Congratulations! You have obtained Ancient Rock City's City Lord's token. Do you wish to bind the token? Once bound, you will become Ancient Rock City's ruler and obtain full authority over the city. Shifeng chose to bind the token without hesitation. System: binding in progress. You will have full authority over Ancient Rock City after 4 hours. You should not move beyond 1,000 yards from the city during these 4 hours. If you leave this area or get killed during this time, the binding process will be cancelled, and you may not make another binding attempt for 1 natural day. CES 4 hours. Shifeng was a little surprised by the notification. Has it reached the main city standard already? When one tried to bind the City Lord's token of a guild city, the binding time would depend on the city's rank. Main city-level guild cities normally took 4 to 6 hours to bind. Guild leader, did something happen? Fire Dance asked when she saw Shifeng's strange expression. It's nothing. I just didn't expect Ancient Rock City to be this special, Shifeng said, glancing at the raging Beast Emperor. Smiling, he continued, since we have to wait for 4 hours, let's pay that evil god's secret land a visit. Black Flame, don't get too delighted just yet. It's useless even if you've obtained Ancient Rock City. That secret land isn't a place you can touch. Without my means of entering, you can't obtain anything inside that secret land. Beast Emperor sneered. I'll spread the secret land's entry methods to all your enemies and even those outerworld people. At that time, you can only watch as they take all of the secret land's treasures right before your eyes. Zero Wing could indeed better defend itself after acquiring Ancient Rock City. However, Beast Emperor also knew very well that the outerworld forces had already deemed Zero Wing an eyesore. Once the outerworld's army arrived, neither Starmoon Kingdom nor the Orc Empire would survive. At that time, the outerworld forces would snatch the evil god's secret land from Shifeng, and Shifeng would be helpless to resist them. However, Shifeng ignored Beast Emperor and led Zero Wing's members to Saint's Hand's residence. Although Ancient Rock City was now in ruins and Saint's Hand's residence had been leveled, the guild warehouse was situated on the first underground floor, so Saint's Hand's guild warehouse remained intact. After Shifeng's group took care of the one Tier 4 NPC and several Tier 3 NPCs guarding the warehouse, they gained full access to it. Everyone from Zero Wing salivated when they stepped into Saint's Hand's guild warehouse. The warehouse, which was the size of 2 sports stadiums, was packed with all sorts of items. Gold coins covered the floor, and magic crystals formed numerous mounds. At a glance, they estimated it held at least 3 million gold coins and 4 million magic crystals. This stockpile of magic crystals was only slightly inferior to Zero Wing's. We're rich. Guild leader, we're rich. Fire Dance exclaimed in excitement as she looked around the warehouse. With all these coins and magic crystals, we won't have to worry about upgrading the buildings of our cities anymore. Zero Wing City's public opening had indeed generated a lot of additional income. Unfortunately, the guild's expenditure still exceeded that amount. This was because Zero Wing City's public opening necessitated an increase in the city's security. The city had to recruit many NPC soldiers to fill as many of the 30,000 slots as possible. While Zero Wing could skim on the benefits provided to the hired soldiers by virtue of Zero Wing City being a main city, the cost of employing level 150 plus, Tier 3 NPCs was still high. With everything taken into account, maintaining a Tier 3 NPC cost 5 gold coins. If Zero Wing City filled all 30,000 of its soldier slots with Tier 3 NPCs, the NPC soldiers' daily upkeep alone would total 150,000 gold. Moreover, This still did not include the NPC's weapons and equipment or the maintenance cost for the Tier 4 NPCs hired. Simply put, Zero Wing's daily expenditure had skyrocketed after Zero Wing City's public opening. At this time, the guild's stockpile of coins was close to empty. Fortunately, thanks to Saint's Hand's contribution, Zero Wing's warehouse would soon be rich again. Seeing Fire Dance's joy, Shifeng chose to hide the fact that ancient Rock City's reconstruction would probably eat up all of this money. Zero Wing might even need to provide additional funds. Guild leader, come here quick. There are 7 luminaries crystals here, Blackie said after opening a chest as tall as he was. With glittering eyes, he continued, there are at least 50,000 units here. That's even more than what we have. Before Shifeng left for the Western continent, he had tasked Blackie with acquiring as many 7 luminaries crystals as possible. Hence, Blackie placed particular importance on the crystals. However, Zero Wing's warehouse currently had only around 30,000 units of 7 luminaries crystal despite his efforts. And if it weren't for Zero Wing having a monopoly over the Arctic Canyon, this amount would be even lower. Yet, Saint's Hand's warehouse had more than 50,000 units of 7 luminaries crystal. That's nothing. Blackie, come over to my spot. I'll let you know what real wealth is, shouted Kola, who stood in another corner of the warehouse, as he pointed at the several hill-sized chests beside him. All of these chests here are full of epic materials or above. From what I can tell, there are at least 300,000 epic materials, 20,000 inferior legendary materials, and 3,000 legendary material. Everyone, including Shifeng, was stunned when they heard Kola's words. This was on the level of a kingdom's treasury. Ordinary kingdoms might not even reach this standard. Only high-ranking kingdoms would have so many rare materials. However, upon hearing Kola's words, Beast Emperor, who had been dragged along to the warehouse, turned livid, his eyes becoming bloodshot. He had accumulated these materials by ransacking multiple kingdoms with the Faux Saint army and destroying numerous NPC cities. Yet, all his efforts had ended up benefiting Zero Wing. Afterward, Shifeng tasked Blackie with sweeping through the warehouse and transporting everything back to the guild warehouse in Zero Wing City. He then brought Fire Dance and the others to a secret room on the second underground floor. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. The secret room was only the size of a basketball court, with a pitch-black door in the middle of it. Upon entering the room, Fire Dance and the others felt an incomparably powerful pressure enveloping their bodies. Fire Dance had unlocked her mana body beyond the 110% completion rate already, yet even she had difficulty walking inside the secret room. After 3 steps, the pressure was so strong that she couldn't move her body. If an ordinary Tier 4 player were to enter this room, they would most likely crumple to the floor, unable to advance even a single step. Ha ha ha. I already said that you people would never be able to touch the evil god's secret land. Beast Emperor laughed when he saw Fire Dance and the others immobilized. He then looked at Shifeng and taunted, Black Flame, it's the same even if you're Tier 5. Without my special method, none of you should think of entering. Beast Emperor had reached the peak of Tier 4 already. He also had the benefit of being an evil god worshipper. Nevertheless, he still struggled to enter the evil god's secret land. This was why Beast Emperor was confident that Shifeng would be helpless against the evil god's secret land even though he had discovered its existence. Is that so? Shifeng stepped into the secret room after glancing at the laughing Beast Emperor. Chapter 2880, God Mode Secret Land. Chapter 2880, God Mode Secret Land. What bold word. I want to see just how far you can go. Beast Emperor watched with ridicule and complacency as Shifeng entered the secret room. He was fully confident that the evil god's secret land would repel Shifeng. However, after Shifeng entered the room, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Apparently unhindered by the oppression the pitch-black door exerted, Shifeng advanced 20 steps without stopping. He showed no signs of discomfort whatsoever. It was as if the pressure that rendered even experts at the peak of Tier 4 helpless was nothing to him. Confusion flooded Beast Emperor's heart as he looked at Shifeng. What's going on? When Shifeng arrived before the pitch-black door, let alone Beast Emperor. Even Fire Dance and the others were stunned. How did you do it, guild leader? Fire Dance asked, unable to contain her curiosity. The intensity of the pressure she felt from the secret room was unprecedented. Even the divine might she experienced in Lightforged City could not compare. After taking 3 steps into the room, she could no longer advance by even another inch. She couldn't even lift her feet. While Tier 5 players were indeed stronger than Tier 4 players, the disparity shouldn't be so significant. Logically, there was no way Shifeng would remain unaffected by the room's oppression. At Fire Dance's question, the other Zero Wing members also looked at Shifeng curiously. How did I do it? Seeing everyone's curious expressions, Shifeng smiled faintly and said, I just walked here, of course. However, I did use a little technique. Technique? The Zero Wing members were momentarily stunned. They hadn't seen anything peculiar about Shifeng's gait. He had merely walked to the door in a normal fashion. Moreover, how could a technique completely mitigate such terrifying pressure? However, when Beast Emperor heard Shifeng's words, he stared at the latter as if he had just seen a ghost. No. Impossible. Who are you? How can you know such a technique? There was indeed a trick to approaching the pitch-black door. However, Beast Emperor had never told anyone this trick. He was the only player in God's domain who knew it. Moreover, even if one knew the trick, one still couldn't approach the door without the evil god's blessing. Shifeng couldn't help rolling his eyes at Beast Emperor. The technique required to approach this door is indeed complicated, but do you think the fundamental technique to manipulate the various elements of mana is unique to the evil god's temple? When Shifeng saw the pitch-black door and the hurdle Fire Dance and the others faced after entering the secret room, he quickly noticed a similarity between the secret room and the Dragon Temple's trial area. In the Dragon Temple's trial, players had to construct a bridge using mana's various elements. The secret room, on the other hand, was filled with chaotic mana. The closer to the pitch-black door, the more chaotic the ambient mana was. What players needed to do was return this chaotic mana to its original state. Only by doing so could players approach the door. Simply put, both places tested players' usage of the various elements of mana. For Shifeng, who had already mastered the basic usage of the various elements of mana, approaching the pitch-black door was a walk in the park. It was much easier than the trial in the Dragon Temple, which had required him to expend a lot of concentration and manipulate a significant amount of mana. The secret room, on the other hand, did not put a burden on his concentration or require him to manipulate a lot of mana. The secret land aside, this room is quite a good training spot for those seeking to learn the basic usage of the various elements of mana. Scrutinizing the secret room, Shifeng said happily, I was worrying about how to help everyone accomplish this, so this saves me a lot of time. It wasn't easy to learn to manipulate the various elements of mana independently. Even if he provided Zero Wings members with an explanation, the learning process would be highly inefficient without a reference. They could be taking a dead end for all they knew. The secret room just so happened to provide players with an environment for testing their application of the various elements of mana. It was undoubtedly a precious training ground. One would also have an easier time getting promoted to Tier 5 if they trained here, as having the ability to manipulate the individual elements of mana was crucial in constructing a Tier 5 mana body. When Beast Emperor heard Shifeng's words, he promptly fainted. Ignoring the unconscious Beast Emperor, Shifeng set his sights on the pitch-black door. The door was 5 meters tall and 2 meters wide, made of a material Shifeng didn't recognize. When he opened the door, a pitch-black whirlpool greeted him. The vortex exuded divine might, and players at Tier 4 or below shouldn't even think of setting foot into this whirlpool. After Shifeng inspected the whirlpool with omniscient eyes, a few lines of information appeared before him. Evil God's Secret Land, God Mode Secret Land Raid Level 150 to 200. What a powerful secret land. The displayed information astonished Shifeng. Now, he understood why Beast Emperor was confident he couldn't obtain the evil god's secret land. Secret lands were like dungeons in God's domain. The higher their ranking, the higher their raid difficulty. God Mode was the highest difficulty for secret lands. Unlike dungeons, though, secret lands would not reset. According to Shifeng's memories, there were less than 10 level 150 plus God mode secret lands in the entire God's domain. Meanwhile, even Tier 6 God-ranked experts could fall in a level 150 plus God mode secret land. However, countless player forces would seek to enter a level 150 plus God mode secret land. It was also a place all Tier 5 players had to enter. This was because these secret lands held clues to the Tier 6 promotion. Which player who had climbed to Tier 5 wouldn't wish to advance further and reach Tier 6? Hence, God's domain's various forces would fight over any level 150 plus God mode secret land that appeared. It seems I'll now have to defend ancient Rock City, no matter what. Shifeng sighed as he looked at the evil god's secret land. Due to the Outer World forces' invasion, he had intended to defend ancient Rock City only temporarily. After all, Zero Wing had limited combat power. In its current state, just defending the guild cities it already had from the Outer World's player and NPC forces would be difficult. Adding ancient Rock City to the list would only make things even more difficult for the guild. However, the evil god's secret land was extraordinary. Shifeng might have ignored it if it were only an Azura mode secret land, but a level 150 plus God mode secret land was something he had to protect at all costs. After all, finding another secret land of such caliber wouldn't be easy, even for him. The entrances of level 150 plus God mode secret lands typically appeared at random locations and existed for only a set period. Thus, none of the superpowers in his previous life had ever managed to occupy a level 150 plus God mode secret land. On the other hand, the entrance to the evil god's secret land in ancient Rock City was fixed. This increased the entrance's value drastically. Moreover, this evil god's secret land might very well hold the key to Shifeng's promotion to Tier 6. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Following this, Zero Wing's logistics members began ransacking Saint's Hand's warehouse, while Shifeng taught Fire Dance and the others the fundamental technique to manipulate mana's various elements. Like so, 4 hours went by in the blink of an eye, and Shifeng received a notification. System: congratulations. You have become Ancient Rock City's ruler. Do you wish to reconstruct Ancient Rock City? Reconstruct, Shifeng said in a determined tone. System: a God mode secret land has been discovered. Do you wish to integrate the secret land with Ancient Rock City? Chapter 2881, Integration. Chapter 2881, Integration. Integrate? Shifeng grew confused as he read the system notification. This was the first time he had heard of a secret land being integrated with a guild city. He had seen many player forces constructing guild cities on top of precious secret lands in the past. However, even as these guild cities developed, they never received any opportunity to merge with these secret lands directly. For a moment, Shifeng hesitated. The evil god's secret land was a level 150 plus God mode secret land. If he recklessly merged it with ancient Rock City and the secret land disappeared, he would suffer a huge loss. However, before Shifeng could ponder things further, he received another system notification. System: it is detected that you have 3 million magic crystals and 5,007 luminaries crystals on your person. You have fulfilled the conditions to reconstruct ancient Rock City with the evil god's secret land as the core. Do you wish to integrate the secret land and upgrade the city? Agree. Shifeng agreed without hesitation when he heard the contents of the notification. There were several holy cities in God's domain, and one of these holy cities had a God mode secret land as its core. The War God's Temple had also established its main headquarters in this holy city. Sanctuary. This sacred place was also why all Tier 5 experts sought to visit the top of the world. Sanctuary was the sole ancient city in God's domain that players had verified to hold clues to the Tier 6 promotion. The city was so old that nobody could ascertain its age in this modern day. Rumor had it that any Tier 4 player that entered Sanctuary had a 100% chance of getting promoted to Tier 5. However, what made Sanctuary amazing wasn't the knowledge it stored. Instead, the holy city held complete control over a level 150 plus God mode secret land. Players that gained sufficient authority in the city, even Tier 3 players, could enter the secret land. It was different from the God mode secret lands found in the outside world, where the minimum entry requirement was Tier 4 because of the suppression of divine might. Although great dangers existed in a God mode secret land, they weren't everywhere. Moreover, the environment inside level 150 plus God mode secret lands was different from the outside world, resembling that of ancient times, the era abounding with gods. Hence, entering a God mode secret land was an excellent opportunity even for low-tier players. Now that ancient rock city could become another sanctuary, how could Shifeng possibly turn down this opportunity? After Shifeng voiced his approval, some of the magic crystals and 7 luminaries crystals he had acquired from Saint's Hands warehouse vanished from his bag space. Simultaneously, ancient rock city shook briefly. Ancient Rock City Region System Announcement: Ancient Rock City will commence with an upgrade. All players within Ancient Rock City will be teleported out of the city in 10 minutes. Players within the city are advised to make the necessary preparations. The system announcement echoed 3 times throughout the region. Subsequently, Shifeng received a personal system notification. System: Ancient Rock City's upgrade is estimated to take 1 natural day. As you hold Ancient Rock City's City Lord's token, you may not move more than 3,000 yards away from the city. You can also choose to log off and rest. Why is it so long? Shifeng was rendered speechless by the notification. A guild city's upgrade would typically take only several hours. Nevertheless, Ancient Rock City needed 1 day for its advancement. By the time the city was ready, Beast Emperor would have long since spread the evil god's secret lands information to all of God's domain. And worse, Ancient Rock City would be at its weakest after the reconstruction and upgrade process. Before the system's first major update, guild cities got a grace period whenever they underwent an upgrade. Now, guild cities no longer received that benefit. Players had to defend their cities on their own. If the outerworld forces were determined, Ancient Rock City might be greeted with a battle as soon as its reconstruction ended. At this time, Fire Dance looked toward Shifeng and asked, "Guild leader, we've emptied Saint's Hands warehouse already. Should we retreat now?" "No, bring Beast Emperor and the other captives back to Silverwing City first," Shifeng replied, shaking his head. "Also, have Liang Jing gather the necessary manpower in Silverwing City ahead of time. As soon as Ancient Rock City opens, have them garrison the city immediately." "Yes, sir." Upon hearing Shifeng's words, Fire Dance understood that trouble would accompany Ancient Rock City's promotion. There might even be a big battle awaiting the city. She immediately set out to execute his orders. After Fire Dance left Ancient Rock City, Shifeng chose to log off and rest. He had been busy with various tasks previously, so he hadn't had a chance to take a break from the game. Now that the system had prohibited him from leaving Ancient Rock City's vicinity, he could use this opportunity to rest up. Yuantian City's upper zone, 6th Southern District. The Fearless cabin's hatch opened slowly, and Shifeng climbed out of the gaming cabin. The instant Shifeng exited the cabin, dizziness assaulted him. He very nearly fell back into the cabin. What's going on? As the world spun before him, Shifeng felt an indescribable hunger. Confused, he wondered, are my mind and body failing to adapt because I spent too much time in the Dragon Temple? However, Shifeng dared not ponder on this matter for too long because he knew there was only one thing he needed to do right now: eat. He had experienced this hunger once before, so he knew that his anemic symptoms resulted from his body lacking energy. Fortunately, Shifeng had prepared for such situations. After Zero Wing partnered with the Boulder Corporation, the latter had given Zero Wing 30 bottles of life potion. Shifeng had distributed most of them to Zero Wing's executives but kept 5 for himself as a precaution. This situation was precisely when he needed to use those life potions. Shifeng emptied 2 bottles of life potion in the blink of an eye. However, although the anemic symptoms he suffered eased, his mind and body still lacked energy. Only after downing the 5th bottle did Shifeng feel himself reviving. Thank goodness I prepared 5 bottles. I wouldn't have recovered from this predicament with only 4. Shifeng couldn't help sighing deeply as he looked at the empty bottles in front of him. These 5 bottles of life potion should have lasted him 2 months. Now, he had finished all 5 in one fell swoop. If Mushin and Kurue found out about this, they would have a heart attack. After all, this was half a year's worth of provisions for them. However, while Shifeng felt heartache over the consumption, he also felt completely reinvigorated. His physical fitness, mental strength, perception, and physical aspects had undergone tremendous growth. Now, even with both eyes closed, he could still perceive the outline of his room. He could even sense the life force of those in the entire building block if he concentrated. This was simply unbelievable. Could I have become a mental strength master already? This thought occurred to Shifeng when he detected the life force of others in the building. He couldn't think of any other explanation for this change. Only the rumored mental strength masters might have such an ability. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU at this time, even his view of the world had changed. After Shifeng immersed himself in this experience for a dozen minutes, he smiled. Although I don't know if I've become a mental strength master or not, with my current standard, I shouldn't have to worry about the mental strength master backing Lu Tiendi. Thinking up to this point, Shifeng tidied up himself and left his house. He planned to visit the 5 States Corporation's mansion to replenish the resources necessary for both his and Zero Wing's development. Previously, he had been worried about Lu Tiendi's mentor targeting him, so he hadn't dared to venture too far from his residential area. Now that his strength had improved significantly, he naturally didn't have to hold back anymore. He could do his tasks without worry. Chapter 2882, Upper Zone Transaction. Chapter 2882, Upper Zone Transaction. When Shifeng exited his home and looked at the surrounding streets and buildings, a faint smile appeared on his face. How generous. He actually sent over a dozen half-step grandmasters to keep an eye on me. He had been living in the upper zone for quite some time now. After getting more information from Mushin, he more or less understood the general situation in the upper zone. While master-level experts could be found everywhere, experts at the half-step grandmaster level were even in the upper zone. They were the mainstays of the various upper zone organizations. Normally, only the direct successors of a corporation would qualify to have an expert of such caliber accompany them. Typically, only a first-rate corporation operating in the upper zone would have more than a dozen half-step grandmasters under its command. However, Shifeng did not pay much attention to the experts trailing him. Behaving as if he never noticed them, he made his way toward the mansion area with a smile. Butler Yi, that kid clearly noticed us, yet he doesn't seem to care about us for some reason, a black-clad, middle-aged man standing on the rooftop of an apartment said as he looked at Shifeng's departing back. He then turned to Yi Kuei, who stood beside him, and asked, "Does he have some kind of backing?" The Infinity Master Fu Jiuzhong had been thoroughly enraged when he learned of his student Wang Xuanming's expulsion from the upper zone. Afterward, he had requested the elders of the several families in his debt to keep an eye on Shifeng. And if the opportunity presented itself, they were to get rid of Shifeng. Naturally, the elders of the requested families were more than willing to sell Fu Jiuzhong this favor. After all, according to their investigations, Shifeng had no background. He had managed to get into the upper zone only because of the Boulder Corporation's Hong Xingyuan. The only noteworthy thing about him was some achievements in God's domain. In response to the black-clad man's question, Yi Kuei shook his head and said, "From what I know, apart from the Boulder Corporation, his only other connection in the upper zone is General Manager Xia. However, her interest in him hasn't reached a level where she is willing to make an enemy of us for his sake. He might be ignoring us now because of the strengthened security around him. If that's the case, this kid's days are numbered," the middle-aged man said as he looked coldly at Shifeng's distant figure. In a duel between 2 grandmasters, it would indeed be difficult to decide the match's outcome within a short time. However, their side had 6 half-step Hunglian grandmasters and 8 grandmasters. 3 of the 8 grandmasters were even bona fide Hunglian grandmasters. If they worked together, even an expert like Wang Xianming would fall quickly and have no opportunity to escape. "In that case, I'll leave the rest to you all, Elder Qi. I will wait here for your good news," Yi Kuei said respectfully to the black-clad, middle-aged man. Elder Qi was the elder of a first-rate corporation. Although he could no longer improve due to his old age, he was still a Honglian grandmaster. His strength even surpassed Wang Xuanming's slightly. If not for Fu Jiuzhong, Elder Qi wouldn't have paid any attention to the Starline Corporation whatsoever. No problem. Leave it to us. Once we get an opportunity, we'll cripple him, Elder Qi said as he stroked his beard. We'll teach this kid that he can't offend just anyone he wants in the upper zone. The upper zone was indeed a safe place, as even mental strength masters wouldn't dare take a life here. Otherwise, the Green God Company would investigate the matter. Even a mental strength master shouldn't think of continuing their days in the upper zone at that time because this was the Green God Company's bottom line. However, teaching someone a lesson or crippling them was a different story. If the Green God Company did not catch the culprit red-handed, it would turn a blind eye to the matter. After all, so long as a person was alive, the Green God Company could let them make a full recovery within a short time with their technology. After saying so, Elder Qi began tailing Shifeng, together with the other experts. Upper Zone, Mansion District. After strolling in the Mansion District for half an hour, Shifeng arrived in front of a 3-story mansion that occupied an area equivalent to 4 basketball courts. As expected of the 5 States Corporation. There are only 10 such mansions in this district. Even the Boulder Corporation didn't manage to get one. No wonder Han Ifeng dares to compete for one of the middle-layer slots. Shifeng couldn't help his surprise as he inspected the luxurious mansion before him. He had seen the pricing for such large mansions. Not only did it cost 140 million trade points, but one also had to have 100 million contribution points. While one wouldn't be required to spend the 100 million contribution points, accumulating that many points was an incredibly difficult task. Meanwhile, such large mansions were much better than the average mansion. Apart from offering more space, these mansions also stood closer to the waist of the mountain. In the base layer, they were the closest buildings to the middle layer. Hence, the mysterious energy filling the environment here was much denser than in other places. After Shifeng took a deep breath here, his mind already felt refreshed. He felt as if he had set foot into paradise on earth. Shortly after Shifeng pressed the doorbell, the tightly shut metal gate opened, and a person walked out. This person was none other than Zhuo Linqiu, Han Ifeng's butler. Looking at Shifeng, Zhuo Linqiu asked, "Mr. Shi, may I know what business you have with us today?" "It's about the agreement young Master Han and I made," Shifeng replied calmly. "As per our agreement, I have come to do business with young Master Han." "Business? Please follow me." Zhuo Linqiu nodded and led Shifeng into the mansion. When Shifeng entered the mansion, he immediately noticed several young men and women training under an elderly man in the mansion's outdoor training ground. The elderly man wore a martial arts robe. Although he had a head of white hair, the aura he exuded was more powerful than what Shifeng had sensed from Wang Xianming previously. Upon Shifeng's arrival, the young men and women turned to look at him curiously, wondering who Shifeng was for the 5 States Corporation to treat him as a guest. However, after getting berated by their elderly instructor, they promptly focused on their training again. "It seems I really can't underestimate the 5 States Corporation." Shifeng was surprised when he spread his senses across the mansion. There are 6 grandmasters and more than 10 half-step grandmasters in this mansion alone. Even the Boulder Corporation doesn't have this many experts. After guiding Shifeng to a reception room on the 3rd floor, Zhuo Linqiu pushed apart the wooden doors to the room and said, "Mr. Shi, the young master is waiting inside." Shifeng nodded and walked into the room. He found Han Ifeng seated behind a solid wood desk with his eyes closed. Currently, Han Ifeng did not exude the slightest bit of aura and felt no different from an ordinary person. Compared to the last time Shifeng had met him, Han Ifeng's aura had changed dramatically. Upon sensing Shifeng's arrival, Han Ifeng opened his eyes. Revealing a faint smile, Han Ifeng said, "Brother Shi, I didn't think you would come to find me so soon. I expected you would wait for the last 10 days to get a better price." Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. At this point, Shifeng's name was already known throughout Yuantian City's upper zone. Not only was he the cause of Wang Xuanming's banishment from the upper zone, but he was even Zero Wing's guild leader. The resources he had on hand tempted many of the corporations participating in this season's contribution competition. If not for Wang Xuanming's teacher, Fu Jiuzhong, many of the corporations based in Yuantian City's upper zone would have long since visited Shifeng and proposed a partnership. I doubt that will happen. I know I am not your only source of contribution points, young Master Han. Had I waited until the last moment, I probably would have gotten a lower price instead. You might not even have wanted my points at that time, Shifeng said, shaking his head. Originally, Shifeng had indeed considered waiting for a better price. Now, though, he couldn't afford the delay. Zero Wing urgently needed a large amount of resources, especially life potions. The life potion was the perfect drug to improve one's physical fitness. If not for the limitation of physical fitness, Fire Dance, Lei Bao, and several other people in Zero Wing would have long since become neutralizing grandmasters. Brother Shu, you jest. In that case, we'll proceed with the 2-to-1 ratio we previously agreed on. I'll buy however many points you have, Hanifeng said, chuckling. However, Shifeng shook his head and countered in a determined voice, no, I want a 1-to-1 ratio. Chapter 2883, Overnight Fortune. Chapter 2883, Overnight Fortune 1-to-1? Hanifeng frowned. Brother Shu, isn't your asking price a little too high? At this time, Hanifeng wasn't the only one dissatisfied. Standing by the door, Zhuolinqiu looked at Shifeng with a hint of anger and ridicule in his eyes. A 1-to-1 exchange ratio was something no organization operating in Yuantian City's upper zone would accept. Life potions and phantom potions served as an organization's foundation. Their stockpile was also something accumulated over many years. These potions weren't items that one could obtain on a whim. Yet, Shifeng wanted to purchase these precious potions at a 1-to-1 exchange rate. Did he take the Five States Corporation for a fool? The Five States Corporation had many sources for contribution points. Meanwhile, these sources only sought a 2-to-1 ratio. On what basis was Shifeng asking for a 1-to-1 ratio? Young Master Han, don't be in a hurry to refuse, Shifeng said, smiling as he looked at Hanifeng's cold expression. A 1-to-1 ratio is a fair price. A fair price? Hanifeng laughed. May I know how you think it is fair, Brother Shu? Because I can guarantee you a slot to enter the middle layer, young Master Han. Shifeng said confidently. Do you think this is a fair deal now? At Shifeng's words, Hanifeng's cold expression changed slightly. However, he quickly recollected himself and asked, those are some confident words, Brother Shu. If what you say is true, I can consider a 1-to-1 ratio. May I know what exactly you are counting on to help me? 600,000 contribution points. That, combined with the points you already have, while I don't know if you can secure first place, getting within the top 3 shouldn't be a problem, right? According to Mushin's information, the top 3 rankers' limit should be around 1 million contribution points. It would be difficult for them to acquire more than this because one could earn only so many contribution points through real-world resources. The only other way these top rankers could acquire more points would be to obtain many 7 Luminaries crystals in God's domain. However, 7 Luminaries crystals were incredibly precious in God's domain, and even the various superpowers barely had any. BQB Shifeng estimated that acquiring 800,000 contribution points shouldn't be a problem for the Five States Corporation. If the corporation included his 600,000 points, it could secure one of the top 3 spots with a 100% certainty. When Shifeng finished speaking, Zhuolinqiu couldn't help staring at Shifeng in disbelief, his eyes very nearly falling out of their sockets. Each of the Five States Corporation's point sources could contribute only several tens of thousands of contribution points. After totaling the points from all sources, the corporation should gain around 600,000 contribution points. Not to mention, these sources would not necessarily sell all their points to the Five States Corporation. After all, the upper zone's various organizations were purchasing contribution points at a high price. The Five States Corporation would be fortunate if it could acquire 400,000 contribution points in the end. However, if the corporation could gain an additional 600,000 contribution points now, It could secure one of the top 3 spots in the competition. At this time, even Hanifeng was visibly moved. 600,000? He has this much strength. In Hanifeng's opinion, taking out 200,000 contribution points would be plenty impressive already. After all, 7 luminaries crystals were not easy to acquire in God's domain. Shifeng had even traded some with him already. With 600,000 contribution points as his base, Shifeng could even try to fight for one of the top 3 positions himself. Shifeng smiled when he saw Hanifeng's reaction. He then asked, "What do you think, young Master Han?" If Hanifeng had 1 million contribution points as his base, all he needed to do next was acquire another 300,000 points or so to solidify his victory. After pondering for a moment, Hanifeng gritted his teeth and said, "That is indeed sufficient qualification. However, a 1-to-1 ratio is still too much. The 5 States Corporation can't take out so many potions in a short time. If converted to trade points, 600,000 contribution points would be worth 60 million trade points. And when converted to life potions, that would be equivalent to 12,000 life potions." This was by no means a trifling amount. Shifeng didn't find Hanifeng's words surprising, either. Instead, he chuckled and said, "If that's the case, how about this? I'll only ask for 2,000 potions. I'll exchange the remainder for a large mansion in the upper zone. What do you think?" I recall that the 5 States Corporation still has the authority to purchase another one. The base layer had only 10 large mansions, and only 8 had owners. After some research, Shifeng found that these large mansions were excellent accommodations. Not only could they house 40 people easily, but the strange energy in the air was also much denser in these large mansions. This denser energy would be of greater help in stabilizing gentle snow and aqua rose's condition. "Shifeng, don't go too far," Zhuolinqiu blurted angrily. "A 1-to-1 ratio is already an astronomical price. Yet, you're asking for a large mansion that's worth 140 million trade points. Do you take the 5 States Corporation for a fool? The value of 10,000 life potions was equivalent to only 50 million trade points, a little more than 1/3 of a large mansion's value." Shifeng's terms were no different from daylight robbery. "My asking price is indeed a little excessive, but purchasing a large mansion doesn't require you to spend contribution points. You only need to have accumulated 100 million contribution points. Meanwhile, not only will my 7 luminaries crystals provide you with contribution points, but they will also provide you with an ample amount of trade points. Exchanging a large mansion for these crystals wouldn't be a loss for your corporation," Shifeng said. "Of course, if your corporation isn't willing to do this transaction, I can find someone else to partner with. I believe the other people competing for the top 3 spots will be interested in my proposal." Zhuolinqiu was momentarily rendered speechless by Shifeng. What Shifeng said was indeed true. Contribution points were far more important than trade points, especially in the middle layer. Moreover, compared to contribution points, trade points were much easier to acquire. "That's enough, old Zhuo." Hanifeng shot a glance at his butler, silencing him. He then returned his gaze to Shifeng and said, "I agree to your offer. However, I will need time to acquire the large mansion. As for the potions, I can give you 1,000 bottles now. I will pay you the remaining 1,000 bottles and the large mansion within the next 5 days. What do you think?" "Sure, I don't have any problem with that." Shifeng nodded. In Shifeng's opinion, the 5 days Hanifeng stated were only a ploy. Hanifeng wanted to purchase as many contribution points as possible from his other sources during these 5 days because once news of his acquisition of 600,000 contribution points spread, purchasing points would become much more difficult. Afterward, Hanifeng signed a contract with Shifeng. According to the agreement, Shifeng would transfer 60,000 7 luminaries crystals to Hanifeng through God's domain within half a day. At the same time, Hanifeng would pay Shifeng 1,500 bottles of life potion, 500 bottles of phantom potion, and 1 large mansion in return. With the contract signed, Hanifeng had Zhuolinqiu pass 100 bottles of life potion to Shifeng, with the rest to be delivered secretly to Shifeng's house. After concluding the deal, Shifeng left the Five States Corporation's mansion with a crate of life potions. Meanwhile, after Shifeng left, Zhuolinqiu turned to Hanifeng and warned quietly, "Young master, your elders will criticize you if they find out you made such an unfavorable deal." "Criticize?" Sending Zhuolinqiu a glance, Hanifeng sneered, "So long as I get into the middle layer, do you think I'll care about what they have to say?" Everyone living in the base layer wished to enter the middle layer. The environment there far surpassed the base layers. The middle layer was also home to many mental strength masters. If he could befriend even one of these masters, his position within the Five States Corporation would become unshakable. At that time, would he have to care about the criticisms of his elders? Gazing through the window at the distant middle layer with eyes burning with zeal, Hanifeng said, "Head out and purchase contribution points from those organizations immediately. It doesn't matter even if you have to offer them a 1:5 ratio." While Hanifeng was secretly going around purchasing contribution points from various organizations, Shifeng left the upper zone together with his crate of life potions. Previously, despite receiving the secret pavilions and Netherworld Empire's guild legacies, Zero Wing could afford to nurture only a small number of experts due to its limited resources. However, now that Zero Wing had sufficient life potions, let alone Void Realm experts, the guild could nurture even Domain Realm experts within a short time. This was something even the various superpowers couldn't accomplish. After all, when nurturing new talents, the superpowers would provide only S-rank nutrient fluids at most, not something as precious as the life potion. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Meanwhile, when Shifeng left the upper zone, Elder Qi and the others stalking him were stunned. "Is this kid crazy?" a Honglian Grandmaster asked when he saw Shifeng entering the mental path. "He dares to leave the upper zone at this time? Could it be that he didn't notice us in the first place?" A lanky neutralizing Grandmaster wondered. "There's no way he hasn't noticed us. I am certain on this point," Elder Qi declared. Looking at Shifeng's distant figure coldly, he continued, "He's looking down on us. Since he's so arrogant, I'll fulfill his wish. Everyone, get ready to take action outside. I want to see what ability this kid has." After saying so, Elder Qi promptly set off after Shifeng. The other experts followed Elder Qi after briefly exchanging looks with one another. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.